In the Newsroom is a production in partnership with Studio Stillwater. Every week, journalists from the Stillwater News Press invite listeners to join us in the newsroom and hear the story behind the stories. Hello and welcome to In the Newsroom. I'm Bo Simmons, editor of the Stillwater News Press. With me today, producer Chris Peters.
Howdy, folks.
City editor Michelle Charles.
Hello.
Reporter Ashlyn Huffman.
Hello.
Hey. We've been thinking about, or at least I have, not speaking for everyone, sort of our most impactful stories, when you start, going 2021, what was the year like? We had a bunch. It felt like just even outside of pandemic, we had, a snowstorm and deep freeze that we hadn't seen in a long time. And we had overflowing ICUs, states of emergency, that kind of stuff.
Rolling blackouts.
Yeah. But one of our most impactful, the Afghan resettlement, easily one of the most impactful stories because Stillwater is sort of in a unique position. It's one of only 5 or 6 cities in the state that's going to resettle.
Maybe by now. Yeah.
Something like that. And that process has begun. Michelle's been through this for a few months now, right? And you talk even on the beginning of it toward right now when they're sort of in the middle of it. But even before they started the preparations, you spent some time with the folks who were just sort of getting ready to host these Afghan Allies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this thing has been developing for a while. They had originally thought that we would have our first family in Stillwater by November 1, was what they said. Then it was like, hopefully by Thanksgiving. As of right now, we have 4 families in Stillwater. It's taken a little longer to get everything going than, they had originally anticipated. But we've got 4 families living here. The holidays kind of stalled things out a little bit. We're speaking on, what is it, the 30th?
Today is
on December 30th.
Okay.
So almost New Year's Eve. And we're looking at things picking back up again starting next week after the first of the year. We'll hopefully have a couple more families arriving next week. And the volunteers and the people working with Catholic Charities, which is the agency that is tasked with coordinating refugee resettlement for the state of Oklahoma. Those folks are getting living units ready for people so that they're ready to go as soon as the people are ready to come in. Because right now people are living in hotel rooms in Tulsa. And it's probably getting really, really old because a lot of these are young families with kids.
Yeah. I've stayed enough hotels with kids. That's fine for like a weekend, but I don't want to be there longer.
Well, the sort of like the exit from Kabul or other sort of camps, military camps.
Right.
That for many that happened quite a while ago.
Exactly. So it's been a while for them to have a home. And not only that, but the clock is ticking on the federal assistance that people receive. That basically started when they touched ground in Tulsa. So if you spend 2 months in Tulsa living in a hotel room, you've only got 30 days of support when you get to the community where you're going to be living. And that gives you 30 days to get language, find a job, do all the things that you need to do to figure out how to live your life on your own. Having said that, our community is going to be providing support. There are people there to help. This is where community is really going to come in. I mean, we've spoken about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. We listened to an interview that you did with a gentleman that's helping out with the resettlement efforts, that's volunteering. And he had a lot of great insights, and maybe you can set up that interview and we can listen to it.
Sure. Basically, back on November 9th, when they were first starting to gather supplies for the apartments, I was able to go talk to some of the folks who were involved in that effort. There's a local church, First Baptist Church, that is supplying storage space, basically. Got a big empty building, lots of space to do this. Salman Rafique is a graduate student from Pakistan, which is a neighboring country to Afghanistan. And he had been there every time they were open, every time they were working. At that point, it was every Tuesday, every Saturday. And he was there carrying things, organizing things, doing whatever needed to be done.
Wow.
Because he said he knew how difficult it is to have to come somewhere far away from your home with a very different type of culture and different customs. And also because he felt that the two countries had not always had great relations. And he felt bad about that, and he wanted to help people. So he had a couple of reasons for being so involved, and he had a lot of really interesting insights into that. So the first part of the interview, here we go.
All right, let's listen.
So talk to me a little bit about Pakistan, what you were saying.
Pakistan is a neighboring country, and I mean, it has had Afghanistan is right next to it. And a lot of people, ever since the war started in 1979, a lot of people have come to Pakistan as refugees. So, we meet them. It's almost as if, we kind of, have some experience with them already. And then, the fact that cultures are very similar across the border, the dresses that people wear are very similar, the norms are very similar, we share religion. So I mean, it's sometimes, just beneficial even if you don't speak the language, you still know most things about the culture, and that is something that can be helpful. So I mean, when this call came up, I just thought that we should be a part of it, and so I just signed up.
Well, and when you talked about needing cultural bridges almost as much as linguistic bridges, almost more maybe, I mean, talk to me about that. What types of adjustments do you think people will have to make when they come here?
I mean, it's a very patriarchal culture there, and a man is the head of the family, and women stay indoors. Generally, they don't work. That's not the culture here. And when you meet people, I mean, people here, even with all the good intentions, they will have their own assumptions because they've grown up in a different culture with different culture. American culture is very individualistic. That's not how Afghan culture is. It's very family oriented, and family means extended family. Your grandfathers will be in the same house, the grandchildren, your grandfather's brothers will probably be living with you. So it's just that kind of a structure. And it can be difficult when people arrive here. So I mean, I do think there are some very basic things that are sometimes different. For example, when I came here, that we have right-hand driven cars. So even making this kind of an adjustment takes a few months. You just do not cross the roads. Like in Pakistan, in many cities, we do not have the traffic signs. So people need a lot of guidance about these things. They knew all the information, but sometimes, it just helps. For instance, I mean, the idea about dogs, that I mean, in those cultures, dogs are not considered pure. Our relationship with dogs is a little bit complicated, and sometimes you get judged because you've grown up in a culture where dog is
your family.
Is not your family,
Right.
And people just say, "Oh, you are such a bad person. You
don't like dogs.
You don't like dogs."
Oh, so what kind of pets?
Cats are fine. I mean, even dogs are fine. Lots of people have dogs, but those who do not have dogs at home, they will for them it's a big thing. Similarly, pork is one thing that they wouldn't eat. Sometimes just the knowledge that it has been cooked in the same pot or utensil, that can be a put off. So I mean, there are these very minor things that kind of can be avoided with right kind of knowledge. So I just felt, I mean, that these are minor little things that because you've grown up there, and then because I've lived here long enough, for almost 3 years, it's almost as if you can just be the in-between person.
How difficult is it to find, say, halal food in a place like Stillwater?
It is. I mean, you get it at the mosque, but then that is frozen. For someone like me, I prefer it fresh, so I go to OKC every month, and I get it for a month. This is something that is my personal preference. But I mean, when I signed up, I knew that some of these families would also prefer this. So I mean, I'll be willing to drive them to the OKC because I know a few places where it is available. Then there are people who who deliver it. I mean, and these are resources that are difficult for everyone else to know, because there are very few stores here. It's not like New York where like the Afghan or Pakistani or Arab populations will be huge. So it's just like this. I mean, again, it's just about being like with the way the community has responded. You just want it to be beautiful. You just want it to be good for everyone.
One of the things that really jumped out at me was that the Mennonite churches brought tea kettles. And I thought, because as I understand it, tea is a big deal in Afghan culture. It's a tea culture anyway, a tea drinking culture. And that might be a little thoughtful thing that would make a new place feel a little bit more like home, or a little more comfortable maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that, I mean, halal is an issue because meat is such a big part of the diet. People eat meat literally every single day. So like the kind of meat that if you're not comfortable with the meat that you're eating or with whatever food you are used to, your day will not be that much fun. And right now, it's just about making them feel welcome and easing them into this life so that they can think about their choices as time moves on. Tea is a big part of the culture, like in Pakistan or in India or in Afghanistan, or even in Persia, like Iran or Iraq. If you go to a home, the first thing that they would offer you is tea, and you're supposed to take it. You can't say no. So I just like carried 40 tea kettles up there, and it just warmed my heart because it's almost as if like tea is the first thing that you offer to a guest, and you drink it say 2, 3, 4 times a day. So I mean, yes, it's a tea culture, and people really are invested in the idea of tea.
So if we go to visit someone and they offer us tea, we say yes.
Hospitality, the concept of hospitality, just as the concept of family, they are very different. I mean, for instance, when I came here and people would be eating and they wouldn't offer me, I found it strange. Because if you're coming to my home and I plan on not offering you whatever I have, I won't eat it. So my American friends now know that if I am gonna eat, they will have to eat with me, no matter whether they've eaten or not. So it's a part of culture where you don't eat without your guests. If someone is at your place and if they don't eat well or if they reject your offer, that's almost like impolite, and like you that will be seen as lack of courtesy.
That's good to know.
For instance, I mean, if we go to eat out, the oldest male will be responsible for paying the bill. That's how it is. And they will literally be hosting everyone else. I mean, here, when I arrived, everyone paid their own bills, and it was like, it took some time learning.
It was a great interview in our, our thanks to Solomon. But, yeah, the thing that we all sort of quirked at was his experience of someone eating in front of him without offering food. We also find that impolite.
I do. Maybe it's because, well, no, I don't think it's just because we're sort of quasi-Southern. I mean, one of my greatest fears in life, people make fun of me because I overcook so much and I overbuy so much when we have company. Apparently, one of my greatest fears in life is that someone will leave my home hungry.
I couldn't imagine.
When are you inviting us over?
I know. Was that an invite?
Absolutely.
Is that a hint?
I couldn't imagine, I don't know, like sitting down to dinner or enjoying something and then someone comes in and they're not automatically part of your meal.
And you just keep eating.
I know, yeah.
That'd be kind of awkward.
I couldn't do
so
that.
Weird.
So I was like, I want to know who his friends were that he was introduced to who were not offering him food.
I wonder if it's our more like snack culture. To
Could
where,
be.
like, you're going in home and somebody's just snacking on some chips while they're watching a show. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm not sharing with you because it's just a snack.
No,
see,
no,
no,
I still would.
I still want a
And
chip.
I know, yeah. And my folks still would.
You would still offer.
Yeah.
I don't.
I would not snack
Maybe.
if someone else was, or I would at least offer.
No.
I wouldn't be mad if they said no, But I would definitely offer. And I would probably ask them enough times to be obnoxious to where they would feel uncomfortable that they weren't eating chips with me.
Yeah, but no, some of those things sound very still like traditional here, like having the patriarch, the one that automatically pays the bills. I mean, yeah, I've still like
been
with family that like does that.
But there are other things like there is going to be it's going to be huge culture shock. But it is funny the other things he brings up, about dogs and how we treat our dogs. I think a lot of people have that view of America. It's like, what is up with you guys and your dogs?
And we're looking at Ashland
staring daggers at me. But here's the thing, though. I get it though. If your experience with dogs is they're running around the street like rats and like stealing things and biting people and this kind of you're not going to like dogs.
Right. Right.
But
as opposed to, Jack Frost is the most consistent male presence in Ashland's life.
I'm telling you, he's an angel.
Burn.
No, that's just the truth. She'll tell you that. I'm not even trying to offend her.
I didn't take it as a burn.
I didn't mean it as one. It was just the truth. She's told me that. That's
100%.
That's how I know that.
The other thing I think Chris kind of raised his eyebrow was the streets and the lack of signs and all this stuff.
Right.
When you're that would be that'd be
need
totally
them.
weird. There's so
Why do
much
we
to
need
learn. Yeah. But there's a lot to learn just to go about, just to be a pedestrian in a city our size. There's still a lot to learn.
And especially because they are pedestrians. They're not going to be drivers right away.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe some of the local bicycle groups need to get them some bicycles.
That would be a really cool thing.
If they ride bicycles, I don't know. But yeah, and I was also thinking on the jobs. So
yes,
right now, like fast food and those traditional retail jobs are almost always available, it seems like right now. But because of the language barrier, they're not going to suddenly be in the drive-through. So it'll be interesting to see what jobs spring up of things that maybe don't require, the language barrier is not as big of a deal, but spring up that people want to hire them, to get them employed.
Maybe don't put people front of house, customer interacting right away. Not because you want them away from your customers, but just because of the communication issues.
Yeah, or even
for a little while until people get used to it.
More.
And by people, I mean the Afghan people who are learning English.
Yeah, and then who knows? Some of them might come here and they might be already computer programmers.
That is true too.
We don't really know what their skill set is.
Right. And one of the things that the people, from Catholic Charities are really emphasizing too, is that these are families. These are young families with kids for the most part. There have been some questions raised about vetting and things like that. These people have been thoroughly checked out. Mm-hmm. And their families, they're just people who want to live their lives, who felt that they could not do that where they were, who were in danger. I've actually seen a tendency to move away from calling, people, refugees, calling people immigrants, even calling them Afghans. I've seen people referring to them as our allies. And I think that's a very important thing to remember.
Branding.
Branding is a big deal. But seriously, it's that's the reason these people are here. They are here because they helped with the war effort. And that put them in the crosshairs. That put them in danger. And so the idea is that they helped us when we asked, and we owe them. And we need to follow through on that promise.
What do we know? We talked about going to school and finding jobs, or who knows how to do what. So do we know what the intake process is going to be like when you're trying to determine someone's skills, or how to move them into this or that subcategory?
They're kind of going through that right now over in Tulsa. Some of these folks have been here for a while, and they're living in hotels in Tulsa, and they're going through a general kind of intake process where they're doing, basic medical care if someone hasn't had it, basic dental care if someone hasn't had it, just kind of getting people ready, getting them almost like a little bit of an orientation before they're brought over. There's obviously, just talking about the culture, talking about some of the the differences in worldview and how you move through this world and interact with people. The volunteers need to be trained. They need to understand these folks. Think about this. This is a historical event. I mean, Stillwater, Oklahoma will have an Afghan population moving forward. I mean, hopefully, if things go well and people stay and they feel at home and they can make a life here and thrive, we will have an Afghan population. And that fundamentally enriches the character of our city and makes us so much more interesting.
And there's also a little added pressure on those sort of first kind of established families, because the people who come on later will be looking to them for guidance.
Absolutely.
And then if they do get established and they're working and they're being educated and maybe even they're making money, who's to say they don't bring in more family members, if they can get them out of Kabul or wherever else,
Oh, and that's how it
Yeah.
works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the immigrant story.
Mm-hmm.
That is the classic immigrant story. Yeah. So, I mean, these are exciting times. There's a lot being asked of our community. And this is a huge opportunity to step up and really show that we're the people we think we are and that we want to be.
I thought it was interesting when he's talking about taking them to OKC.
Yes.
To get a fresher quality of food. I would assume at some point, we've got the Asian market, we've got the Himalayan market, we got some that are probably, I wonder if they're going to try to step up and acquire
there could be
some of that stuff. I mean, if you're talking 160 people, that's enough mouths to justify a new product line to bring
Or
in.
an enterprising person could have a kind of general store.
Oh, absolutely.
Or one of our stores could
Clothing?
open up a different wing.
Or you could bring you could bring a refrigerated truck up once a week.
Yeah.
I mean, there are all kinds of opportunities here, because you're right. This is enough to create a market or grow a market that maybe has already existed but didn't justify, keeping a whole lot in stock.
Mm-hmm. And that's supposed to be like we all eventually just like, oh yeah, this is how this will work, because that's supposed to be the American, market way, is like, oh, there's an opportunity there.
Absolutely. And an opportunity for maybe one of these families to do that and help the
That's
people
what
who
I
come
was
after.
thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot going on. I've got a lot more of that interview, and I mean, we might, want to talk about that in another podcast, or, definitely we'll put bits and
I'm
pieces
sure
of it
we'll
up.
be able to keep coming back since it's sort of an ongoing story. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, that'll do it. Thank you for joining us in the newsroom.
Howdy, folks. Just want to remind you that you can get your free Studio Stillwater sticker by going to studiostillwater.net. Click on the link at the top of the page and fill out the information, and we will send you your free sticker. This podcast is made possible with support from the Stillwater News Press. Please consider subscribing to our award-winning newspaper and help support local journalism. Go to stwnewspress.com to sign up. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.